Hello, BookTube. My name is David. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to continue a series that I started back in July of counting down my top 25 board games as of right now. This is a list that is always kind of in flux, as any board gamer will tell you, that it is a constant changing because it varies based on what we're enjoying right now. There's always new games that we're trying that might dethrone ones that we already enjoy, so on and so forth. But I wanted to count this down because of the series of videos that are being done by Angela from Literature Science Alliance and Alan from the Library of Alexandria, Sarah Reeds, and all of them. They're doing their top 5 board games, and each installment's about an hour, and the 4 folks in there all talk about their favorite board games. And so that got me thinking I'd like to take part. I wasn't present to get invited on with that kind of a discussion. I'm not, special enough, fancy enough, big enough, whatever. I can still make board game content of my own because I do play board games. I enjoy board games a lot. I'm having board games later today, having some people over to play. Played some board games last night. So board games have been a part of who I am for 6, 7, 8 years now. And I want to make sure that it gets a little bit of time in the spotlight too. I know there are some of you that play board games, some of you that are interested in board games and trying them out. And so a list like this maybe isn't the most helpful thing for everything, depending on how involved you are already with board games, what your background is, what your experience level is. Not all of these are going to be great fits for newer players, but that's why I did a video about a week and a half ago talking about 15 recommendations for newer board gamers. And I'll have that linked down below. So today we're going to count down 15 through 11. So number 15, we have Commands and Colors as a series. So this particular installment I'm holding up is medieval. They've got Ancients, they've got Napoleonics, they've got one on World War I, American Revolution, they've got a sci-fi one set in space with ships. They've got one that's a fantasy theme. They've got a Game of Thrones one. So they've got a samurai one that just recently came out. And the great thing about this system as a whole, and I had to do the system as a whole in order to not have like 3, 4, 5 slots in this top 25 be filled by the different installments. So you've got hexes on this map that's divided in 3 sections, and then each of your units is a series of blocks. And so those are your units, and so the objective that you're trying to do is eliminate usually a certain number of segments from your opponent's force before they get rid of that many from you. And so in order for it to count as completely clearing, you have to clear all 4 of the blocks, or in some cases 3, some rare cases 2, all of the blocks that make up a unit in order to get basically a flag that counts as a point towards victory. And so whoever gets to a certain threshold first will be able to win. And you have a hand of cards that usually ranges from 4 to 6, and they give you your options on how you can command your units. So whether you command 3 units on the left side of the board, could be 2 in the middle, could be 1 on the right and 1 on the left. It gives you all kinds of variations. Could be all of your red units, all of your blue units. And so the fun of it is in about an hour you can set up, play it. It's got, each installment has 15, 20 scenarios. The samurai one I think has 40 in it, which is incredibly good value. But trying to manage with what your hand of cards is, how to optimally react to what your opponents have done and how the board is set up in order to try to eliminate their units. And it's fun, it's fast playing, it's got a little bit of historical flavor if you want to learn some background, because each scenario gives you kind of a overview of what happened historically, and so you're trying to counteract that if you're playing on one side, or trying to make sure it happens that way. If you're playing on the other side, we've seen it happen plenty of times both ways. But this is a system for as fast as it plays, as easy as it is to learn. This is a great recommendation For newer and experienced board gamers, this is one that I'm always happy to play. I would never turn down a chance to play Commands and Colors with anybody or to teach it to anybody. And that's why it is number 15 on my list. Number 14, we have Pipeline. So this is a relatively new game. And this one's kind of a challenging game. It's all about having the most money at the end of the game in order to win across 3 years, so to speak. And each year gets progressively shorter in the number of turns that you get. So year 1, you're going to have more actions that you're able to do, whereas in year 3, you're going to have only a few to try to maximize your points and your scoring potential to turn all of the oil that you're making, producing, storing. You're going to try to sell them or have them in order to complete end game objectives to get more money. And so the neat thing about this is that you've got your little player area where you're going to store cubes of one of 3 different colors of oil. And so depending on how, or you're also going to have a set of pipes that you're building out into your own area. So you can see here it's got a couple of different areas. So everybody's going to be building their own system of pipes. And based on how long of a stretch of continuous number of pipes of a certain color, when you put your person on the pipes to run the oil through there, you will get increasing value of oil. So there's unrefined, and then there's a low quality, a medium quality, and high quality. So the longer the stretch of pipe that it has to run through, the higher the value it's worth, which means that it's worth more money, or it can be used to fulfill higher contracts to get you a better payout at the end. And that's what you're trying to work towards. Is at the beginning, you're going to have really small pipelines that you're going to be running things through, but you're going to try to manage it to where you can have longer. In each game, there's going to be different scoring objectives. There's going to be different technologies that are available to choose. It's a really fun game. It's really challenging. It can really make your brain hurt in all the good ways, because you're trying to do 2 things. So you're trying to be efficient with how you're doing your actions, but you've also got a spatial element where you're trying to build the pipes. There's a limit on what comes out, so that's all you're going to have throughout the entire game is going to be in those 4 grids, apart from what will change each year and a little offering on the side over there for pipes. A lot of the things that you do are going to cost money. You don't have enough money typically at the beginning of the game to do everything you want, so you've got to find ways to turn things around quickly into money. There are contracts that you can get that you have to fulfill each and every year, and if you don't, you get penalties. There's also one-time contracts that are a lot harder to fulfill, but are worth a lot more if you can do it. So it's fun, it's challenging in all the right ways, and I absolutely love playing Pipeline. It's not going to be the right kind of game for everybody. Not everybody likes that spatial element in there. I happen to particularly like it. So, number 13, we have the return of another Alexander Pfister game. So he had Great Western Trail and Mombasa on the previous 2 lists, and now he returns with Maracaibo. So this is a game that has a theme that may not be for everyone, because you are exploring in the kind of the Caribbean. But a lot like Great Western Trail, you are going to be moving along a set track, so to speak. You've got a boat that's going to move, and you can move between 1 and 7 spaces along the way. That is a lot, and so it can be really short or really fast depending on how quickly people move, because you're playing over the course of 4 times around the track. Once one person gets to the end, it basically sets a timer where everybody else has one more action before that round's going to end, and you have some resets. There's cards with people and different things that you can get to give yourself more actions along the map, or to be able to get better benefits, to get little tokens that will then add to your income or to your victory point tracks. There's battles where you're fighting for one of 3 nations, so France, Spain, or England. So you're helping them in naval battles to try to get more reputation in them. And the further along this reputation track you are for each of them will be more points that you will earn. And being the furthest on any given track will also give you some bonus points. The more cubes that they get out will also increase the scoring. So they'll have cubes that will be able to go out onto the different islands out there. There's an explorer track down there at the bottom where you move an explorer through that can give you extra bonuses and points. You've got your little ship area where you've got little discs that certain things can remove some of those to give you extra bonuses and actions that you're able to do to make you more efficient. All of the cards have both a person on there, but they also have some symbols on there, so you can spend those symbols to do the actions on the board or along the map. So you're trying to balance the cards that you want to have to be able to buy them into your crew so that you can get their effect, or deciding whether you want to use them for the symbols that are on there to do other things. It's a really, really delightful game. Plays about the same amount of time as Great Western Trail, but it feels a lot more cutthroat, competitive, has some really good, meaningful decisions, and I just absolutely love it. It doesn't replace Great Western Trail for me. The two of them are different enough that I like them both equally. On any given day, I would be happy to play either of them, but I have found that I tend to prefer Maracaibo just a little bit more than Great Western Trail, and that's why it's higher up on my list. But that's not because Great Western Trail is a bad game or a worse game by any means. Number 12. We have a game that I don't get to the table nearly as often as I would like. It probably would be in my top 5 if I were able to play it on a more regular basis. But my wife isn't a big fan of this, even though it's a worker placement game, which, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is her favorite thing to do, is worker placement. Go figure. That is Argent, the Consortium. So in Argent, you have a school where you've got tiles and you have little mages that you get to place out on tiles. And there's different colors of mages, each with a different kind of special magical ability. Some of them when you place them, some of them that happen at the end of the round, some of them that just make it so they can't be attacked by other mages' magic, and things like that. And so each of these rooms have different spots on there. And so each spot has a different kind of benefit that it will give you. And so typically the top spot, you have to have a special kind of merit badge, which are limited in number and they're hard to obtain, but you can get a couple of them over the course of the game. And you have to be able to flip one of those to its other side to be able to use the top spot. But at the end of the round, you're placing all your mages. None of the things trigger on most of the rooms. There's a couple of exceptions, but most of the rooms don't trigger until at the end of the round, where you start at the top and you go left to right, top to bottom, resolving them in order, and each room is going to resolve top to bottom along the way. So there's some competition, because typically the higher up the spot is on the track there, the better the effect it is that you're getting. So you're trying to maximize what you're able to do while trying to maybe block some of what your other opponents are able to do. You have spell cards that you can get, you have supporters that you're trying to obtain, and the real neat twist in this is you don't know at the start of the game what will be of value. There's a board of, I believe, 12 supporters who have votes, basically. They're voting on who's going to be the next chancellor, the next head mage for this magic school. And you're trying to win their votes by the placement of your people and by figuring out what it is that they want to give their vote to. And so one of them might be voting for the person that has the most green magic. And one of them might be voting for the person that has the most money. And one of them might be voting for the person that has the most red supporters. So that has gained the most influence among other red mages. And so as one of the actions that's available in there is being able to peek at what's under those cards, and then you can mark that card showing that you've seen it, so at any time you can look at it again. But you can spend time trying to look at all of the different possible objectives, or you can just kind of go based off what other people are gearing towards, thinking, okay, they've seen this, they must know that this is one of the objectives, so I need to try to keep up with it. Because at the end of the game, the supporter is going to go to whoever is in the lead on each of those categories. And so it's a matter of determining who has the most supporters at the end of these 12 or whatever the number is that get divvied out based at the end of the game. And I absolutely love that. I think it's brilliant. It's a game I don't get to play nearly as often as I'd like. It's a game I'm hoping to play today, if I'm honest with myself. Because that's what game days are for playing the games that no one else will play with you. Number 11 is Arboretum. So this is another return from my recommendations of the best games for newer players. This one is it's going to make your feelings get hurt. So don't play it with somebody that's easily offended. This game is played strictly with cards, and these cards have trees, and the trees have values between 1 and 8. So each tree type has 1 through 8 in the deck. And depending on the number of players, you'll have a certain number of trees that'll go into the deck. Other than that, they're all identical. And you'll have a hand of 7 cards, and at the beginning of your turn and at the end of each turn, you will have exactly 7 cards. And so you will start your turn by drawing 2 cards. You can draw them either blindly from the top of the deck, or you can take a top card from one of the discard piles, because everybody has their own discard pile that they discard into. And so you will take 2 cards into your hand, then you will play one into your tableau of trees where you're making a path, so it's not restricted in any way, shape, or form, but they just have to be connected to another tree on there. And then one will have to go to the discard pile. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get continuous stretches of trees to where you can trace a 1, from a low number to a higher number of that same type of tree. And it doesn't have to go through all trees of the same type to be able to get there. There's extra points, basically doubled the points if it is all the same type that you're tracing through. But it has to be going in sequential order. It can skip numbers in there, but you couldn't go 1, 2, 5, 4, 6. It couldn't trace along that path because it doesn't all go in ascending order along the way. And so figuring out how to do that spatial element of how to build them is good enough. But the only one person is going to score each tree at the end of the game. And that's determined by those 7 cards that are left in your hand at the very end. Whoever has the highest value of that tree still in their hand will get to score that tree at the end of the game. So you're trying to balance having the cards that you need to be able to score what you want to score in order to get the points at the end, versus keeping cards that you see your opponents are putting out there to try to prevent them from scoring. Oh, hey, Johnny's got a lot of points that he'll get if he gets to score the pine trees. I better start grabbing some pine trees so that I can prevent him from scoring. And that's also the struggle of what to place out, because you don't want to put your strongest trees out there necessarily, because it's going to hinder your chance of scoring those trees. And I mentioned the highest value is 8. You might think, oh, if I hold an 8, I'm okay. I'm solid. I just got to hold that 8. There's 2 problems with that. That 8 card, if you have it out and it's counted in your path, is worth 2 extra points. But also, if you're holding that 8 and somebody else is holding the 1 of that, then that tree of 8 is worth 0. Making it so that 8's not bulletproof. The 7 is actually the best card to hold on to. But if somebody else has got an 8 and you don't have the 1 and nobody else has the 1, they're going to get to score it instead of you. It's a constant struggle of, okay, how am I going to do this? These are the cards I want because I need them to score. These are the cards I want because I want to get them out, but I also need to hold them to score. And these are the cards that I can't let go of because I need to prevent you from scoring what you're working on. That's what I love about Arboretum. And then, as with the other videos, I've got a bonus game that I'm going to mention here. This is not necessarily one of the games that would be in the next 5. but a game that I just want to recommend because it's one I love. It doesn't hit the top 25 this year, but it's still one I really enjoy. I love playing, and I picked this specifically because in the last video that those folks that I mentioned at the start did with their countdown, one of them mentioned Castles of Mad King Ludwig. And this game, friends, is a delight. You are building spatial elements. I don't know what it is. You're building spatial, you're building a castle, and it's going to look funky. It's not everything's going to match up. You've got doorways on each room, and each room type has differing scoring bonuses. So like this one here says that you get an extra point if you have it connected on a door to another green building. And so you're trying to balance connecting rooms to get bonus points with trying to hit one of the end game scoring objectives that's common to everybody, versus everybody has some secret scoring objectives, and you can get more of those throughout the game that will give you bonus points. And you're also trying to close as many doors as you can, or close off as many rooms, because every room where you have something connected to all of the doors of that room will get a bonus for it closing, and it's based on type. The activity rooms here, the brick surrounding ones, typically have things that score negative if it's connected to. So in this case, a living room or a sleeping room, so a purple or a blue connected to it, is -1 point. But the rooms also have a point value that they will give you when you build them. So you're trying to balance all of that, and that in itself would be good enough. But there's an auction in this. And it's not an auction where everybody gets a chance to put out a bid and whoever does the better job of bidding wins. No, there's a set number of values that you are trying to do. So it's 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000. And so you're going to take turns being the master builder. And so when it's your turn to be the master builder, you're looking at the buildings and you've got one for each space. And you have to determine which one goes in each of those spaces, because each space can only hold one building. And you're trying to determine what everybody wants, what kind of value they're placing. If you really don't want them to have a certain room, you could put it really high so that they can't buy it. But then they might buy the building that you want instead. What you're trying to do is you don't want to put something too low to where they're getting it for cheap. Because when you're the master builder, everything that the other people that are buying pays to you. Meaning that that's your source of gaining income for the next 4 purchases that you have to make. Well, yeah, 3 purchases after this one. Because when you buy a building, you pay into the bank if you're the master builder. So the next set of purchases that you'll have to make, that money has to last through all of your purchases going through. There's a couple ways of getting around that. There's the green outdoor buildings that when you build them, they'll give you bonus money when you close off all their doors. And you can also choose to build nothing and take $5,000. But by and large, you don't want to be doing that. You want to be building and adding more buildings because that gives you points. And so you're trying to maximize how much you're getting in from the other players without letting them underpay, while getting what you want for as cheap as possible. And that is the brilliance of it, because it is an auction game that I can actually understand and do well at. I'm terrible at auction games where it's you have to set a value on things and bid on it. I'm not good on that. But this one, where it's got a static set of amounts and trying to figure out what everybody wants and putting it out there, that I like. And as the master builder, you're the last one to get to buy because it goes clockwise from you. So you will be the last one to make a purchase. And sometimes you'll be like, really? You're buying that? What? How? Why? And you don't understand, but maybe they've got a face down objective that you don't know about that might give them value to buy square buildings or buildings of a certain size or a certain type. So that is Castles of Mad King Ludwig. And it is a wonderful game. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this countdown, and stay tuned. I'll be back for more.